So which tank is best? Well, in my opinion, there is no doubt that the medium tank is the best one. Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about the difference between light, medium and heavy tank chassis. Now, before we start, let's say a couple of things. First of all, there is not going to be one best tank design. The best tank design is going to depend on the situation in which you're playing. So if you're playing single player, if you're playing against Germany, if you're playing a multiplayer against heavily armored divisions, that's going to be different. Since I mostly play single player, and in single player, the AI doesn't usually build a lot of tanks, so 90% of the time you're going to fight against infantry. On my tanks, I value soft attack the most. This is the stat that impacts the most when you fight enemies with low hardness, which means infantry divisions. If you're going to fight a lot of tanks, you're going to want hard attack and piercing, but that's not going to be the case for us. So in our case, the two stats that we're going to value the most for our comparison are the speed and the soft attack. In addition to that, other relevant stats are also the hardness, the armor and the reliability. Why is that? Well, reliability is only relevant if you're not good at managing attrition, but actually it's easy to end up with low supplies, especially when you're, invading the Soviet Union, you're fighting in low supplies areas. So unless you're very, very good at managing supplies, having a higher reliability will mean losing less equipment to attrition. And especially if you are producing expensive tanks, you don't want to lose them to attrition. So all in all, to put these things together, when you start an offensive with your tanks, what's going to determine if the number is green or red, if you're going to push or not, is the difference between your soft attack and their defense. So the higher the soft attack, the higher the chances you have of pushing the enemies when you attack them. The speed is going to determine how quickly you will occupy the enemy territories after defeating the enemy divisions. If your speed is high enough, after defeating the enemy divisions, you have a chance of overrunning them, so reaching the next region before they do, which means destroying them completely. That's extremely powerful, and that's why you overall want to have good speed on your armored divisions. The hardness is going to determine how much damage you take from the enemy divisions during the fight. If the enemy divisions have high soft attack but low hard attack, having higher hardness will mean taking much less casualties. The armor is going to work in a very similar way. If the enemy divisions have low piercing and you have high armor, you're going to take a lot less casualties. Now, you may not care about casualties. If you have a nation like the Soviet Union, the Roman Empire with unlimited manpower, probably all you care is the soft attack and the speed. You don't care too much about losing men. But with Germany, where you have a limited manpower pool, you may want to have higher hardness and armor to decrease your casualties. Moreover, me personally, I love seeing like 1,000 casualties from my side and 1 million on the enemy side, so I always like to have slightly higher hardness and armor to get those better stats at the end of the war. Okay, now that we explained the stats, let's talk about the difference between light, medium and heavy tanks. Now, the first difference, the most important probably, is going to be the kind of main armament that you have access to. With light tanks, you can only pick small armaments. This limits a lot your choices in terms of armaments. In fact, the best armament in terms of soft attack for light tanks is going to be the close support gun, but 25 soft attack is really not that much. Now, if we check my design with basic light tanks, it is this one. This is a design that is aimed to maximizing the soft attack. This is the highest possible soft attack we can get on our light tanks. As you can see, we got the close support gun, then we get one heavy machine gun. To be fair, this could be changed into a small cannon to slightly increase the soft attack at the cost of reliability. And then with light tanks, we only have access to one of those modules. So we are forced to use additional machine guns, which however only give one soft attack each. So at the end, we only have 32 soft attack. The speed and reliability are good, but our hardness and armor are very low. What's going to be the difference with medium tanks? Well, with medium tanks, we have access to medium armaments, which unlocks for us the howitzer, medium howitzer, and improved medium howitzer. These armaments have much better stats than the close support gun. In addition to that, with medium tanks, you can have up to 2 extra cannons or machine guns modules. which are going to increase even further our soft attack. This is the comparison between our medium and light tank, and as you can see, with our medium tank, we have much higher soft attack, we have higher hardness, slightly higher hardness, much higher armor, and much higher breakthrough. Now, if we give a look at our heavy tank chassis, we can see that now we have access to heavy armaments, which means we can use the heavy howitzer. Now, in addition to that, we also have unlimited slots for heavy machine guns and small cannons. By unlimited, I mean up to 4. If we remove the radio, we could use another one, which would increase even further our soft attack. Now, this is going to be up to you. You can use another machine gun, or you can use the radio, and it's not going to be much of a difference. So if we compare this tank with our medium tank, so the reliability is fairly low on this heavy tank. 63 is starting to be a bit too low for my taste. I prefer it to actually be higher than 80%, so even the medium is a bit too low. But the soft attack is very, very high. We got decent piercing, we got very good hardness, and the armor is actually lower than the medium one, or basically the same. Breakthrough is going to depend on what you use here. If we use the radio, it's going to be basically the same. Okay, let's draw some conclusions at this point, because we also need to check the production cost and resource cost. Now, in terms of production cost, the difference between medium and light again is not massive, but the difference between light, medium and heavy is pretty massive. 24 is a fairly high production cost. The cost in terms of resources is the same between basic, medium and heavy. And it's much higher than light, so that's something to be considered if you do not have access to resources. But one more thing that I would like to highlight is that the heavy has these very good stats because we're using the heavy howitzer. The heavy howitzer, however, is something that you unlock very late in the game. So earlier in the game, you're probably going to be forced to use the same howitzer as you're using with the medium tank. And if we do that, and if we use the improved radio instead of the additional heavy machine gun, well, now the difference between the medium tank, 56.7, and the heavy one, 59.8, is not that big anymore. So which tank is best? Well, in my opinion, there is no doubt that the basic medium tank is the best one. Light tank is a bit cheaper, but you sacrifice a lot in terms of all of the relevant stats. You don't have soft attack, you sacrifice hardness and armor, which means that your offensive potential and your defensive potential is much lower. And that just to save 4 in terms of production cost, in my opinion, that's definitely not worth it. The heavy tank is also not worth it, in my opinion. It is not worth it because yes, you can get more soft attack, but only later in the game and only at the cost of reliability. Having lower reliability may force you to pick some special modules such as the easy maintenance or the wet ammunition storage. And if you do that, so to increase your reliability, to bring it to a decent amount, your soft attack basically goes down to the same soft attack that you had with the medium tank, but with a much higher production cost. So one last thing that I would like to cover is if the medium tank is the best, is there any situation in which I would use light tanks or heavy tanks? Well, I must say, for me personally, the answer is no. Light tanks are slightly better for recon, if you make a recon company, but I still prefer motorized for that, so I still wouldn't use light tanks. Heavy tanks are better for tank destroyers and possibly SPAs, but the thing is, you would need to research them. You need to spend not only production, but resources on the research to make heavy tanks. Moreover, I prefer to make only one type of tank, because otherwise the production will be much more complicated to manage. And by all means, if you're only going to produce one type of tank, that should be the medium tank. The medium tank is a very balanced tank. It's going to be somewhat in between the heavy and the light in terms of production cost, but closer to the light. It has very good stats, and it's also the best for flame tank companies. If you want to know why, you can check my dedicated video up here. And well, that's about it, I think. We talked about the difference between light, heavy and medium. One more thing that we could say about light is that light tanks are a bit like an upgraded cavalry. But personally, if you're going for that, then I would probably rather using motorized or stick to cavalry. Motorized are faster, cavalry don't have fuel, so they can go for longer. But, you know, light tanks are slower than motorized and they consume fuel, so I don't see the value in that personally. If you have a different opinion, if you like light tanks more, heavy tanks more, please let me know in the comments. I would be curious to hear your opinion. Other than that, of course, thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.